Jane Seymour was the Queen of England as the third wife of King Henry VIII, from their marriage on May 30, 1536, until her death the following year. She became queen after the execution of Henry's second wife, Anne Boleyn. She died due to postpartum complications less than 2 weeks after the birth of her only child, the future King Edward VI. She is the only one of Henry's wives to receive a queen's funeral, and she was later buried next to him in St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle. Jane Seymour was born around the year 1508 or 1509, although the exact date is not known for certain. She came from an influential English noble family. Jane first came to the attention of King Henry VIII as one of the ladies-in-waiting to his second wife, Anne Boleyn. During that time, the relationship between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn deteriorated, and the king began to seek ways to end their marriage. Jane Seymour emerged as a potential choice to be Henry VIII's third wife as his marriage to Anne Boleyn became increasingly strained. Henry's interest in Jane began to develop while she was still a lady-in-waiting to Anne. The first reports of Henry's interest in Jane occurred in February 1536, about 3 months before Anne's execution. Jane was highly praised for her gentle and peaceful nature. She was clearly different from Henry's previous wives, who were more inclined to be rebellious and put pressure on Henry. After divorcing Anne Boleyn and Anne's execution in 1536, King Henry VIII and Jane Seymour became engaged the day after Anne Boleyn's execution and were married 10 days later at Whitehall Palace, London, in the Queen's Closet by Bishop Gardiner on May 30, 1536. One of the main reasons for Henry's swift marriage to Jane was his desire to have a male heir who would secure the English throne. Previously, he had been married to Catherine of Aragon and later to Anne Boleyn, but had not produced a surviving male heir. Jane Seymour, as the third wife, became Henry's new hope for bearing a son to secure the Tudor dynasty. She was publicly announced as queen on June 4, 1536, but never received her coronation. 2 factors underpinned this. Firstly, there was an outbreak of disease in London at the time, and secondly, reflecting on his previous 2 marriages, Henry may have been reluctant to crown her until she fulfilled her duty as queen by giving him a male heir. From the beginning of her reign, Jane showed sympathy for the late Queen Catherine of Aragon and her daughter, Mary. Jane formed a close relationship with her stepdaughter, Mary, and made efforts to have Mary reinstated at the court and in the line of succession, behind any children she might have with Henry. She advocated for Mary's restoration both before and after she became queen. Although she couldn't fully restore Mary to the line of succession, she was able to reconcile her with Henry. Jane extended similar treatment to Anne Boleyn's daughter, Elizabeth. Additionally, as queen, Jane was known for her firm and formal demeanor. She replaced the lavish entertainments, revelry, and household extravagance associated with the previous queen, Anne Boleyn, with strict decorum. She even banned the French fashions introduced by Anne. In 1536, Jane became pregnant. During her pregnancy, many soothsayers informed Henry that Jane was carrying an heir. That proved to be true, but unfortunately, the baby did not survive. In January 1537, Jane became pregnant again. During this pregnancy, she withdrew from public affairs and lived a relatively peaceful life, attended by the royal physicians and the best midwives in the kingdom. She was confined in September 1537 and gave birth to the long-awaited male heir, the future King Edward VI, at 2 a.m. on October 12, 1537, at Hampton Court Palace. Edward was baptized on October 15, 1537, without his mother present, as was customary. He was the only legitimate son of Henry VIII still alive. Both of his half-sisters, Mary and Elizabeth, attended and carried Edward's train during the ceremony. Prince Edward brought great joy to Henry and the entire realm. However, that joy would soon turn to sorrow. Jane's labor was difficult, lasting for 2 days and 3 nights, possibly due to the baby's improper position. After the baptism, it became evident that she was seriously ill. She passed away on October 24, 1537, at Hampton Court Palace. She may have suffered from puerperal fever, a bacterial infection contracted during childbirth. Jane was buried on November 12, 1537, in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle after a funeral where her stepdaughter, Mary, acted as the chief mourner. She is the only one of Henry's wives to receive a queen's burial. After her death, Henry wore black for 3 months. Historians speculate that Jane was Henry's favorite wife because she gave birth to a male heir. When Henry died in 1547, he was buried next to Jane, at his request, in the tomb he had prepared for himself.